When I first start a portrait, whether it be a commission or something that I've decided I'd like to do for myself, what I like to do is have them come in for a preliminary, almost talk, and I make charcoal sketches while they speak to me, because there usually is certain mannerisms that create their personality, and that is something I like to usually catch, whether it's some way that they hold their glasses in their hand, or the fact that they may raise an eyebrow when they speak, or if they laugh a lot. Sometimes you want to get that smile because that's them, and people recognize them from that particular thing more than just sitting there and looking out of the canvas. So that is my first move, to make the sketches. I do profiles, front view, so on, and when I've decided which one I like the best, I execute it on a canvas. And the second sitting, usually, after I've got it on the canvas, I block in the color and continue talking to the person, because sometimes the way I think I was going to do it changes in the middle of doing this, because now I've seen something, oh, I have to get that in, or maybe I should introduce that particular phase there, and so on, so that it sometimes is a little bit different than I had first thought I was going to do. But usually that would be the second sitting. After that, I take a lot of pictures, because now I've pretty well decided where I'm going with it, and usually most people don't have time to sit there for hours and hours, so that I can do it this way from a photograph until I have the next sitting, which usually takes about a month later, because I work out all of the technicalities from the photograph. I know where I want the light to be. I know what color I'd like to have behind it, the background, and so on. And as I did with this, Heather was sitting here in my studio, and I had a dark background. However, because of the flute over here, I gave her a side view so that she had a great deal of empty here. And I thought I wanted to be able to do something interesting in the background to counterbalance what was happening here, but it shouldn't be too much. And I thought of the night sky, and that seemed to be a good solution, because I could show that there is light coming from here, and that casts light on her coming down in this direction, which is what I endeavored to do at this particular point. You could see the shadow of the flute there. You could see the shadow on her face from her hair. And that gave me more of the feeling that this would work. And I did think I was going to do more with it, but after looking at the clouds, I thought that was quite enough. And we can suppose that there's a moon behind it casting that light. Having just finished a series of American women that were prominent and so on in their areas of expertise, I came upon Heather, who is not only a very talented human being, but a very attractive human being. And I immediately saw her as something that I had done and worked on before. It was that angelic expression in her face, very sweet personality. In fact, I had done a copy of a Di Madrazo angel. Of course, she had no clothes, but she had the same kind of expression and features, I think. Very ideal as far as eyes, nose, mouth, and you couldn't help but fall in love with her just to see her. And I had that same feeling when I saw Heather, and I thought, wonderful, I could combine something that has the talent that she has, the area of expertise that she has is in being able to teach young people. And she has a lot of young people under her that are teenagers. Sometimes they are a little difficult to handle, but she handles them beautifully and does beautiful music with them. They have a wonderful choir. And I wanted to portray that whole feeling of her and her music and her serenity and her whole personality. So when I asked her to sit for me, she was very gracious and said she would. She'd give me time, and she doesn't have that much And she did. She sat there and I was able to converse with her. And as I was speaking with her and painting at the same time, I got to know Heather very well. And she certainly is the kind of person that she portrays herself to be on this painting. She is a very sincere, warm human being and very regular in spite of all of her talent. She plays all of the woodwind instruments, plays guitar, is expert in trying to get the children to do a play. She just finished with The Phantom of the Opera. It was something that I would have invited anyone to. If you can't make Broadway, come to her and she can give you this wonderful performance. And that is one of the reasons I had her sit for me. I wanted to get all of that on the canvas.
Music has always been a part of my family. My mother is a trained pianist, and my father is a church organist and a Catholic recording artist, and my uncle's a guitarist, and music has always been a part of our lives. And as far as schooling goes, I really didn't formally study music until I got to college, the Aaron Copland School of Music at Queens. Up until that point, my uncle had taught me the guitar, and my parents collaborated on teaching me the piano, but I started taking the flute. I taught myself the flute when I was about high school age, and then I started to take that more seriously in college. I was actually studying classical guitar at first, and then I moved on to become a woodwind specialist, flute, oboe, clarinet, saxophone, things of that nature. As far as being an active musician, I know I've done quite a bit of church work. I currently play in a flute, harp, and cello trio, and I've done quite a bit of community theater. I've played places like Flushing Town Hall, Madison Square Garden, and I try to stay as active in that as possible, but more than anything now, I'm a high school music teacher, and I truly love doing that. I currently am the band and chorus director at Christ the King Regional High School, right here in Middle Village, and we perform quite a bit. As far as my responsibilities as a band director, it's both a concert and a marching band. So the marching band has been in the Veterans Day Parade on 5th Avenue, plus the concert band performs at in-school events, and the chorus has done quite a bit of work. Christmas caroling, we've been a guest choir over at St. Matthias, and I'm very proud of all of them. Sitting for a portrait done by Constance was truly an honoring and overwhelmingly humbling experience. As far as it's just something I never thought I'd be able to do, and it's really, really flattering because Constance's subjects are always such strong members of the community, and it's just some honor that I really, really appreciate getting, and not one I thought I'd get for quite some time. But I really felt it was very interesting to watch her work too, as a fellow artist, to watch the process. You know, when I first came in, she had a conversation with me just to kind of get a sense for who I was, as far as I guess what I was looking like when I was talking, because in that sense it's more elevated than a photograph. You're actually capturing something that's alive as they are sitting there living. And I found that to be the most fascinating aspect of it, of all. Sitting for a portrait is not as tiring as one would imagine. That was the first thing that really struck me about it, is I really thought that the prospect of having to sit still by itself was something that was going to be a challenge, especially for someone who's, you know, a performer and whose art exists over time, as opposed to something that is still. But that's really not her way. I really wasn't, you know, it wasn't a militant situation at all. It was more than anything else, she wanted to capture life. So, you know, I didn't necessarily have to sit still like a soldier, you know, and again, part of the process was the conversations she had with me beforehand, wherein she would get, I suppose, certain nuances of facial expressions and such. So I did find that aspect of it really, really interesting, that I really never walked out of these sessions exhausted. It was relaxing more than anything else, because I was there free to be a person.